Good evening, fellow ghouls and specters alike. Your ghost host at the most, Jacob Weil here.
And Blue Dragon 5, here to engage in some haunted holiday hijinks by trudging through the catacombs, dusting off the cobwebs to recount a spooky selection of Halloween classics.
So light the jack-o'-lantern, suit up, and grab the candy dish as we revive and recount tonight's spooky selection. The Exorcist. So yeah, this is a big one, Dragon.
Yeah, move over 30th anniversary Adams Family Values. We're talking the big 50, 50.
The diamond anniversary. Isn't 50th the
I don't know what the gemstones with the anniversaries are. I don't know.
that,
I forget how. Was Disney actually trying to do that with all the re-releases? That what the platinum thing was all about? Like, is that actually correlate with the number of the anniversaries?
well, like, they did it for their parks. They did that.
Well, that's the part. I was saying, like, every time Aladdin got re-released, like the platinum, like they actually have to do with the year.
And usually, like anniversaries are like also tied to like specific. Is like apparently gold is 50, diamond is 60.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what it is.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
It's like so technically this is the gold anniversary for the Exorcist. Technically the actual gold anniversary would be December 26th of later this year.
Well, again, it wouldn't really be like, hey, let's just stop all seasonal shenanigans and talk about the Exorcist.
Yeah, so it's all about timing.
Yeah.
But it would be remiss not to mention its actual release date in this case.
Course. Yes.
Theme Park Priest here. Good evening to you too, Theme Park Priest.
Good evening.
Good evening. So yeah, this is a big one. I mean, we've discussed big movies before, but this is obviously like one of the most famous and acclaimed horror films ever.
So, pretty much.
Like definitely one of the biggest. I understand that the portrayal of exorcism is rather accurate, minus some Hollywood emphasis. For what it's worth, I called the local Exorcist recently. For like, because of like to do research on the movie, or because you're experiencing possession issues.
Yeah, it could always be both.
I mean, that's true, I guess. But it's like let us hope it's more of the former instead of the latter. Because we don't really want Theme Park Priest to be dealing with any real life demonic presence. Nobody needs that in their life. More of the latter. Ooh. Well, I hope that works out for you. Theme Park Priest. It's like, so yeah, Dragon, what are your thoughts on The Exorcist?
Yeah, so as I've said before, I don't ordinarily have the constitution for horror. I have the thing where I like horror comedy and the making of horror tremendously. So my exposure to The Exorcist was primarily kind of pop culture osmosis. Stuff like the Bravo movie, or like the great ranking countdowns from Bravo, the Bravo channel, when they had top 25 horror icons, or top 20, or the top 20 this, top 20 horror movies, or etc. The horror. Then of course there's like the horror documentaries, which kind of cover like demon possessions and everything. Of course, The Exorcist will be brought up. Your parodies. I mean, look at Scared Shrekless. We have an Exorcist parody in that, and obviously we just covered one fairly recently. There's that too.
Literally yesterday.
Yeah. And again, most iconically, the poster strikes a very memorable poster.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have like in my background, I do have a little snippet on how the poster or the scene in the movie was inspired.
Sure. So that's thing. So I never really watched it from start to finish. I'd seen like from like the little clippage of what the kind of ranking and people are talking about. You see like a few clips from the movie, usually third act. It's in my stuff with Friedkin's work is I really like the French Connection, but when you look at Friedkin's work with the French Connection and with this, Um, it's for me, this movie is a bit of a mixed bag because I think it's a good story at its core. Obviously, the story is very strong. It's shot very well, but with Freakin's work, it's a slow burn in his movies. He really goes for the slow burn, and these are not like super lengthy movies, but still, these are really dense with material. And Act One usually moves at a glacial pace. I think French Connection just had like a lot of like we're kind of we're simmering towards stuff there, and it's not like we're not getting stuff in the meantime, but it really feels like this one is it kind of deflates the balloon for me, if that makes sense. It kind of deflates the balloon for me for about an hour or so in the runtime until the last 40 minutes of this movie. It all comes together flawlessly. That's what I'm saying. Like the last when we actually do the exorcism itself, we do the namesake of the film. And I'm not saying we don't have like good parts leading up to that. It just feels like very top of the movie. It's like very top of the movie, and just like certain points we're just kind of living in like these are really cool shots, aren't they? And we're just kind of going through there, and things are kind of eerie, but it's not really like I kind of, given where the story goes, I don't know. I kind of wish we paralleled things a little bit more. I kind of wish we kind of like we kind of made more sense. Like, why are we dedicating this much time to this guy and then this lady? And of course, eventually they're going to collide. But I don't think I think the collision kind of luck into it, honestly. But that's the thing, though. I think this movie is definitely worth the hype. But I feel I don't know. I think it was maybe like a less is more sort of thing. I kind of wish this movie was in a sense where it's like, you know what? Looking at the movie at its core, it's like we just have something that like this movie could be like a 40-minute short. It'd be like the most amazing 40-minute short you've ever seen in your life. To some degree. But again, that's just kind of how I feel about it. I'm not a ride or die horror guy. I just like it's like I guess since I like a documentary about this movie more than I might the movie itself. But who knows?
The thing is, I actually did find, like, doing my research, I did find, like, a behind-the-scenes stuff about a lot of the stuff involved in the making of this movie.
Yeah, I'm sure there was.
I mean, I could probably send it to you later if you're interested.
Okay.
All right. But obviously, we'll have to do that after we're done here.
Well, yeah.
But as for me, like I said, I first watched this in, like, the mid-2000s. I believe that was for the first, the mid-2000s. It was like during my discovering the classics phase of my life, because like every movie person, every person who's a fan of movies, like always like discovers like this is like one of the greatest movies of all time. So like you feel like you need to watch them. If you ever go through that kind of phase, Dragon?
Yep.
And of course this movie had received a level of infamy for both positively and negatively in different circles, as again you're probably well aware of. So I was like, I believe I rented it, and I think it was like a DVD version of the 2000s version, like a DVD copy of the 2000s version of the version you've never seen, which had some of the additional scenes that were cut from the theatrical release reinserted into it. Because you watched it on Max, right, Dragon?
Correct.
As did I. And there were some scenes that were in that version that were not in this version, like the spider walk scene. I'm sure you've heard of that.
No.
There's a scene that they originally. Well, this is bleeding into the background a little bit, but there was a scene that was initially shot where like Reagan walked backwards down the stairs in a spider walk.
Now I know about this. Yeah, because I saw the parody of the spider walk. I didn't see it in the movie though.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't. The version on Max does not contain that scene, but it was really cut because like you could see the wires on the stunt double, and there was no way they could convincingly do that and get rid of the wires until the 2000s, where they could just CG it out. So that's one of the scenes that was that's one of the things that was cut. So I was like, but that's also one of the things that basically means that the version on Max is a different cut. But I did see the version that included that, and I tell you that scene did kind of haunt my memory for a lot of years. Mainly because of just how out of nowhere it comes, you see her crawling backwards down the stairs and blood coming out of her mouth. So I watched it. I mean, and obviously it stuck in my memory, and I didn't. The funny thing is, certain images from the movie stuck out to me more than the actual movie itself. You know what? You know where I'm coming from on that, Dragon?
Yeah.
All right, so it's like I didn't dislike the movie. I mean, I still enjoyed it. And I didn't, but I don't think I appreciated the slow burn of it as much as I did, as much as I do now. Like even watching it now, like I do kind of agree it is slow, but I think it works in building up the atmosphere, and then and basically straight towards the end, it drops that slow burn and goes full balls to the wall crazy that everybody allows it for. And it definitely creates an interesting experience. I mean, especially for the time, like it might some of it you can definitely see it as being tame now. Like, Dragon, did you even find a lot of the stuff actually that scary now?
I mean, there's really what's more disturbing than scary. You know, there's a lot of really. I mean, the scene with the cross, man.
Yeah. We will get to the. Well, of course, we'll get to some of that stuff in our dissection of the movie, but.
Yeah.
Some of it can be even a little bit shocking even today, but it's still tame compared to like a lot of the stuff that does come out today. So that's why I can, but just think for the time, this was definitely like groundbreaking for the time, and some of the stuff they were able to do, and the stuff that they portrayed on the screen. Just like some of the stuff was unheard of and unseen on film. So it's like it definitely earned its reputation. I'll say that. All right, so Dragon, how about some background?
Please.
Right, I'll start with some of the obvious ones. The film is based on a 1971 novel of the same name by author William Peter Blatty. Blatty was known for his comedy work, especially with director Blake Edwards. Blatty even co-wrote the film with Edwards, A Shot in the Dark, which is the second film in that series. Blatty was also acted as the producer of this movie, and in addition to writing its screenplay. The novel itself, however, was inspired by the exorcism of Roland Doe, a supposed case of demonic possession and secret exorcism that Blatty heard about while attending Georgetown University in the 1950s. Blatty's fondness of the area is one of the reasons why the story is set there in the first place. Georgetown being an area of Washington, D.C. Like, of course, William Friedkin, who was an acquaintance of Blatty, directed the film. You earlier mentioned Friedkin's work, The French Connection. It was during the press tour of that movie, which Blatty sent him a manuscript of The Exorcist, and which Friedkin wrote in one night, and was basically chosen then to direct the film. Other directors that were considered by Warner's were actually John Boorman. Is that a name you're familiar with, Dragon?
I've heard the name. I'm blanking on his filmography right now.
Well, his most famous film is Deliverance.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. That rings the bell then, yeah.
He would also direct the sequel to this one, Exorcist II: The Heretic. He actively disliked this movie, so they hired him to do the next one. And the result is, you're probably well aware, quite infamous, but for an entirely different reason. It's quite good. The Exorcist II: The Heretic is widely considered to be one of the worst films ever made. So, other directors included Arthur Penn, Peter Bogdanovich, and Mike Nichols.
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick was also considered, but only if he could produce the film himself, and he's more interested in producing his own stuff anyway. Can you imagine an Exorcist that was directed by Stanley Kubrick?
I don't think the world could handle that.
Probably not. I mean, one can only imagine. I mean, he's obviously done horror, and this was before The Shining came out, right, Dragon?
Let's see. Was The Shining 87?
I think it was earlier than that.
Yeah, I was thinking it was earlier. Okay, so The Shining. God, The Shining wasn't 87. It might have been 80.
It was 80, actually.
Really? It was 80?
Yeah, 1980.
There you go.
So there you go. Principal photography began in August of 1972, when basically Friedkin was very hands-on and was really wanting to elicit there's a genuine reactions and performances from the actors. Like before takes, he would like slap them, fire blanks, basically to elicit genuine fear and disgust from the actors. We're all familiar with the infamous vomit scene, but supposedly, like there are conflicting rumors on this, but it was originally supposed to go like to shoot onto Miller's chest, but there are two versions that say like either Friedkin like modified it, someone modified to shoot on his face, or it was a malfunction. Either way it ended up on his face, and the look of disgust is actually quite genuine because he was surprised by it. It's like so. There's conflicting stories on whether it was intentional or an accident.
So Freakin like to really torture the actors, kind of Sam Raimi-esque, is what you're saying.
I'm not sure about Sam Raimi, but yes, like it's like I mean he was nice to Linda Blair because she was just a child at the time.
I might have heard she might have hurt her back during that bed scene though.
No, that was her mother that hurt her back, or like Ellen Burstyn. Like the scene where she shot back, like that scream is actually because it like blasted her like with more force than was intended, and she had basically had a permanent spinal injury.
Mm-hmm.
Like she landed on her tailbone. Like, I mean, obviously Linda Blair didn't come out of this scot-free either, but that's another story. That's more like after the movie. Warner Brothers, of course, like during the casting, wanted Marlon Brando to play Father Merrin. But William Friedkin vetoed the idea, stating it would become a Brando movie.
True.
Because like Brando is kind of a prima donna kind of actor. Like he is definitely a diva.
Yeah, this would have been him coming off The Godfather as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, but Brando, well, Godfather was like the height of his popularity, the height of his kind of his acting kind of like adulations and everything. He was going full cue cards by that point. Like the other thing, folks, Godfather was done with cue cards. Even Superman, he was still doing cue cards. Well, no, definitely. Sorry, Superman, he was definitely doing cue cards because Godfather came before that. So he was doing cue cards in the 70s.
He basically like leveraged his star power to like say, I don't need to memorize the script, just hold the cards in front of me.
But silly as it sounds, he did a really good job with it though.
Yeah, it's like he was good in Superman.
You'll believe that man can read.
Exactly. Well, I would hope so, considering his profession. Speaking of Reagan, like over 500 actresses, including ones who have become famous, such as Kim Basinger, Laura Dern, Denise Nickerson, Melanie Griffith, Brooke Shields, and Sharon Stone were considered for the role of Reagan. They also saw Jamie Lee Curtis, but her mother Janet Leigh refused. Obviously, this was before Jamie Lee Curtis became famous for Halloween.
Well, and she never went on to do anything, so it's if she'll. Yeah, we never heard from Jamie Lee Curtis again when in the vicinity of horror.
Nope. And during the filming, Friedkin tried to follow the script and the story as closely as possible, including filming on location, like in Georgetown, and like the steps were actually a real location. They filmed in the scenes that took place in New York. They actually filmed in New York, and they actually had to get permission from the Iraqi ambassador to film in Iraq, including like under like several provisos and using local crew. But it'll basically because at the time there was no diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Iraq, so Warner Brothers was worried that if they filmed there that Friedkin would not return from Iraq. I mean, because you have to remember this was during the 70s, so it's kind of a valid concern.
Yeah, we're all lovey-dovey with Iraq now.
I know, but back then it was. I know, but back then it wasn't much better.
True.
Let's see. speaking of like we talked about the poster from earlier. Like the scene, and the specific scene and the fact that it's used on its poster was actually inspired by a famous painting. This is a painting called "The Empire of Light" by French artist Rene Magritte. Like another, I'll try and sprinkle in the rest of the fun facts I gathered as we go through the rest of the movie. But and another thing, this is actually the first horror film to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture, and was nominated for a total of 10 awards, winning Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound, and it was the highest-grossing R-rated horror film until 2017, however surpassed by It.
Well, was surpassed by what, Jacob?
You know, Dragon, It.
Oh, you mean Cousin It? You know, he got a movie?
Yes, Dragon. It was terrifying, didn't you know?
Did he sound like Tim Curry in that movie to you?
No, he sounded more like not like Skarsgård.
Anyway.
Yes. Yeah. The original cut was actually a bit longer with 100. It was actually 140 minutes long. Freaking thought it was a perfect length, but Warner Brothers wanted to trim it down to 2 hours. He was initially hesitant about it, but realized that trimming the scenes that made the film better at the time. Blatty wanted to keep some of the scenes, including the original ending, which had Dyer and Kinderman connecting agreeing to go to the movies, and along with Karras and Marin discussing the demon's motivation for possessing Reagan. Friggin and Blatty argue about this scene throughout production. For the Blatty, the scene explains why he'd been subjected to this horror for so long, but Friedkin felt the audience would understand why at that point. So he thought the scene would just basically be fluff at that point. Another fun fact, not fun, but the set actually caught fire at one point.
What was the cause?
I don't remember what the cause was, but they actually, and due to the fact that there's several other things that happened, they brought in an actual priest to bless the production. Because they started to believe that this film was actually cursed. And if you want more insight into the whole behind the curse stuff, check out the Cursed Films documentary series on Shudder. They provide a lot of insight into that. I'm sure you've seen that one, Dragon, right?
That one, yes, I have.
So you probably heard about something along those lines.
Yep.
All right. And I'll sprinkle the rest of that information throughout the rest of the discussion. But essentially, that's the meat and potatoes of the whole thing.
All right. Now veggie time's over. Let's talk some Exorcist.
Yes.
We have some comments.
Yes. Little Blues. Speaking of Stanley Kubrick, he had the cast of The Shining watch The Exorcist, Eraserhead, and Rosemary's Baby to put them in the right frame of mind.
I love the way Kubrick thinks. He's treating them like kids. Like, okay, let me make sure they get nightmares for the whole production.
Not the only time movies have been brought in for troubles during productions. Yeah, that is true.
Okay, so I gotta be honest. I still do not quite get I don't quite follow the opening in the movie.
What do you mean?
Well, we see don't we see a statue of Pazuzu when we're overseas at this temple being excavated?
Yeah, in Iraq.
And right in Iraq. Yeah. Well, wait, is it actually supposed to be? I know they shot in Iraq. Wait. So actually, it's supposed to be Iraq. We didn't shoot in Iraq.
They shot in Iraq, and it's supposed to be in Iraq.
Okay, so it's both then. Okay, well, I know you said that. I just wanted to make sure I got
specific dialogue in the film later does mention that Father Marin was in Egypt. I mean, not in Egypt, Iraq.
Okay, that's what I said. That's what I wanted to verify. I just want to make sure it wasn't Egypt. Okay.
I meant to say Iraq, not Egypt.
Okay.
At that point. Yeah. And another fun fact. The name Pazuzu is never actually mentioned once in this movie.
Yeah, that's the thing, because everyone about The Exorcist told me about Pazuzu this, Pazuzu that, and I looked in and I was like, did I miss something? I didn't get any Pazuzu at all here, but apparently in the sequels, I'm going to guess that's what they called the demon that possessed Reagan. Is that right?
Well, that and the fact that it was actually explicitly name dropped, I believe, in the original book itself.
Okay, so it's established in the book. It just didn't quite make the cut of the movie.
Yes.
Okay, so
Mainly, I think there might be. I think there are several conflicting reasons as to why, but I think the main reason is because they believed it would sound too silly.
all right, so this is what I'm saying, Jacob. You look at the opening of this movie, and without, I guess, knowing some of the supplemental material, it just reads as okay. It's just kind of an artsy kind of like thing where we have our priest character. Mer- I keep wanting to call him a wrong name here, but I want. It's really hilarious.
Max von Sydow's character is Father Marin.
Yes, Father Marin. So Marin. See, I keep wanting to call him Merkin.
What is Merkin?
Merkin's like it's a gag from the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. It's the Fred Armisen character.
Nice.
Anyway, so Marin, so Father Marin, he has kind of a cool little introduction. Honestly, the whole opening with the excavation kind of reminds me a little bit of the opening of Close Encounters.
It would kind of come out around like the same time. Like,
well, that's the thing. If you, the big thing that reminds me of is there's actually somewhat of a parody of The Exorcist in Batman the Animated Series with the episode Avatar. No, not that Avatar or the other guy. No, it's not those avatars. The episode called Avatar.
Is that is that a Ra's al Ghul episode?
Yes, it is.
That makes sense, I guess.
It's a Ra's al Ghul episode, and essentially involves this. The best way to it's kind of hard to describe. She's kind of like a zombie mummy kind of. She's really a goddess, but she's kind of mummified. So there are a lot of horror homages in that episode. There's a little bit of The Shining with how she transforms, but before that, the way the episode opens is a lot like The Exorcist.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Anywho. But this is what I'm getting at. So we have like it looks cool. I think the only way I can really read this is like an aesthetic thing. Okay, so we set up Marin, Father Marin, and we set the nitroglycerin that he's taken, and the man has a little bit of an experience with evil because he kind of sees it permeating the place around him. But I don't think it connects that. I don't know if something got unleashed during the dig, and it's the statue. Did I miss something? Did the statue come to the stateside? Like, what's the deal?
I think it's
purely is it purely aesthetic?
I don't think it's necessarily an aesthetic, but I think it's supposed to kind of imply that he is familiar with that statue, and he's done these because obviously, as the later movie and the reveals, like. Pazuzu, the demon, is familiar with Marin, so clearly they've had some contact in the past.
Okay, but I guess my question is like, does that opening have any connection to why? Well, it's just in quotes Pazuzu or like the unnamed demon force is attacking Reagan. Like that's the missing piece for me. Like, did the statue show up in like the main thing in our main story?
Actually, yes. If you remember, if you remember,
because I was looking for it, I couldn't find it.
Like during one of the Exorcist, during the end, like you can see, the scene where she's like she's on the bed, like and it's all dark, and she's like raising her arms in like agony. You can during the bright lights, you can actually see the statue there.
Okay, how did it get there?
I think it's supposed to be like more of a visual thing.
So you follow me, right? This is why I'm a little lost on things where it's like, okay, so is the statue important? It sounds like it's pure like symbolic.
It's symbolic.
That's what I'm saying. It's just symbolic. Like, what's the point?
Like, it's supposed to show it's supposed to be a connection. It's like that's the same thing that's possessing Reagan.
Yeah, I guess.
Basically that's the symbol of Pazuzu.
Yeah, but yes, there's the symbol of Pazuzu, but has the symbol of Pazuzu also get there? Did we literally just cut away to it briefly, or was there actually another like a little statue in that fancy house that they rented?
It's like it showed up in shadow while they were there. It's like I said, it's a symbolic thing. The statue doesn't actually physically show up.
Okay, that makes it a little better my vision there. Okay, not bad. All right. Okay, so it's literally just like it's a little connect to the opening. All right.
Basically, like I said, it was to highlight the connection that Father Marin and the demon had.
All right. So Okay, it's a little better, at least for how we kind of connect A to B there, but still, it just feels a little like we might be suggesting that something's been unleashed, but it's purely just to say, okay, this guy's probably had dealings with the representation of evil here.
I think it's meant to be somewhat ambiguous, considering
Well,
that.
yeah, I'm not asking to spell everything out, but I'm saying it's like it kind of seems like maybe well, why of all places an excavation site, you know?
because he's an archaeologist as well as being a priest.
Hmm.
And from what I can from what I've heard, I might need to rewatch the documentary, but I think this is like one of the last scenes to be filmed was the beginning,
Well, it's probably the most expensive.
and the fact that they could, and the fact it's also in another continent as
That's the
well.
thing. That's what I'm saying. It's like, we don't want to just do this on day one. What are we, nuts?
So
You want to go where? On this is 1973, my friend. We can't just go there on day one. What's wrong with you, freaking? Come on.
Yep.
Right. So, okay, let's see. So, I love Chris and Reagan's familial dynamic. I love what we're doing there. I love like the family drama where it's her birthday and her father's like not even calling her, like something like that. All that's I feel that's a very important thing to establish in the film. Where later on, obviously when Reagan gets possessed and things are looking really dire and really terrible, you want to feel for this kid. You want to feel for the mom. That said, I get an issue with her.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So I think the love between mother and daughter and the stakes are there and they are great. And there's not a thing wrong with that. I do wonder, in hindsight, I wonder if over the years maybe freaking kind of wondered about this. I think making Chris an actress, like with the whole movie within a movie thing with the whole director plot line, a part of me feels like it could have been trimmed. It just feels like it makes her a little less relatable. It just feels like we only have that for two reasons. One, to establish she has money to go to all these doctors, and two, to explain why we're in this pretty nice set for the duration of the film. Like they're renting a really nice house because they're on location she can afford it. So, I kind of, it feels a little thin for an explanation for like money for doctors and really nice set.
Yeah, I mean that was also her. That was also the occupation in the book as well.
I mean that would
Again,
make sense if you're going to carry it over in that sense. Sure, yeah. But
McNeil was actually inspired by Shirley MacLaine, who was a friend of Friedkin, not Friedkin's, of Blatty's.
well, how do you feel about the actress thing, Jake? I mean, do you like her being an actress, or do you think it's maybe a bit of a disconnect for like a general audience?
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a disconnect. The fact that she's an actress doesn't really receive much attention in the overall plot, other to explain like why they're in Georgetown at the time.
Okay. I mean, also it's the fact we have like the whole director murder thing, so I think we kind of need her to be an actress for that part.
So, like I said, I don't personally think there's much of a disconnect because it is kind of highlighting like this kind of thing could happen to anyone, doesn't matter who it is.
I mean, well, yeah, Jake, but even saying it like that, doesn't it feel like a little, man, this is kind of a first world problem? It's like, thank goodness she had like all that money so you can see all the top specialists in the land versus like, the average Joe is struggling, like, oh God, I'm worried about my kid. I've exhausted all options. I'm going to turn to religion. There's our movie. That feels like the abridged version of the movie. Like, we took her all the doctors and all the lands and they're all giving us the same answers versus, oh God, I got nothing. Let's turn to the cross.
I mean, I kind of see where you're coming from on that. I'm just saying, I personally don't have an issue with it myself. But
so, let's see.
yes.
So with the runtime overall, I mean, so Friedkin's plotting. Friedkin is plotting the long game, and he's setting up the pieces. Specifically, the desperation on Chris McNeil.
Yeah.
Exhausting every avenue to diagnose her daughter's problem, and you have like the universal parental nightmare.
Like,
the parental nightmare of like, oh God, there's something wrong with my child, and there is kind of a universal aspect. As I said, I'm a little bothered by maybe we could have made it a little bit more universal, but not factoring that in. I do like the universal aspect of, hey, everyone's afraid there's something wrong with their kid, or that this maybe someone in some way, shape, or form, almost like kind of a fully blanketing kind of like thing. Everyone might have an issue or a fear or an existential dread or something they're going through with their kid, and that is kind of like the demonic possession is the symbol for that.
Gotta find it's not biological, psychological first before one can get the help of an exorcist.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that is basically one of the cruxes of the film, of course. Like, and in the I believe in the novel it was made more ambiguous, whereas whether or not it was an actual possession, whereas here it is straight up a demonic possession. Like I need to look more into that, but from what I understand, it is actually more ambiguous in the book. Like a lot of more so that like it's explained like physiologically rather than being possessed.
Right. Also, movie technically set during Halloween.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah.
Yeah, we saw some kids in costumes. It was in October.
So it kind of fits.
Yeah.
Like, according to Friedkin, like the move, like you're talking about, like all the hospital stuff. Like that's the stuff that like kind of freaks people out the most. Like not necessarily like the possessions, but like the hospital stuff, like where it's like drawing blood and everything.
That freaked me out too.
Yeah, it's like that's like he said like that's the he said he's never been able to fully watch that scene himself. It's like, and he wrote the thing.
God, that's what I'm saying. Like, freaking, why'd you have to go that far with all the surgical stuff, man? Why you gotta gross everyone out?
It's like I don't know if I could call it a fun fact, but like the radiologist in the hospital scene was a real life radiologist. His name is Paul Bateson.
Oh, that's kind of a fun fact. I mean, a real radiologist, I guess.
Bateson was also later suspected of being a serial killer.
Okay, well there you go.
That's why I said I can't really call it
now I know why it's not a fun fact. See, initially I was like, oh, I happen to be a real radiologist. Isn't that kind of cute?
Yep, you didn't let me finish completely.
No, you're right. I jumped the gun. But was it suspected or actually a convicted serial killer?
That's like, I'm not entirely sure. I couldn't find.
That's kind of an important detail. Was it?
I think it was straight up confirmed because I think that was actually mentioned in the Cursed Films thing that we watched on Shudder.
Huh.
Like I don't know. I think he was like accused or maybe like convicted. I don't know if he like did any jail time on them. There wasn't a lot of sources on it. But yeah, so he was a real radiologist, but he was also supposedly a killer too.
Yep.
So
could have saved so many people by cutting that scene out.
Yeah. So don't worry. The rest of my facts are a bit more fun than that one.
All right, let's talk about Damien.
Damien Karras.
Yes, Damien Karras. I really like Damien Karras.
Jason Miller.
Yeah.
It's like he wasn't originally a film actor. Like he was actually a stage actor before this. Like, but Friedkin like saw him in a play, saw him in a play, and sought him out for the movie, and Warner Brothers actually bought out his contract to get him into the movie. So he was so he gotta admit, he does a really good job in this movie. And it's like this disillusioned priest. What do you think, Dragon?
Yeah, no, I thought he was a highlight of the film. You have this priest with a crisis of faith. He has a sick mother who dies. He
who kind of is like his brother, and her blame it on him.
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
Yes, I mean, I love the guy is on a path to religious awakening. He's on a path to go on like a religious reawakening, whether he likes it or not, in order to save this child. So that's I found it very interesting. I like that he was a very down to earth guy. That's what I'm saying. When the movie starts, I'm kind of finding myself gravitating more towards his scenes than I am like the first world kind of like actors going to the Hollywood parties with the drunk director kind of aspect.
Yeah, but seeing the two interact and basically their scenes collide makes the whole thing interesting. Like even though technically Chris and Damien don't really meet until like halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
Like seeing Damien, his mother, and basically even his dream where like he kind of witnesses something happening to his mother. It's kind of freaky.
Yeah, the silent nightmare.
Yes. Did you actually notice the freeze frame during that scene?
Not exactly. What was the freeze frame?
Like, actually, there's more than one because during the course of the movie, there are at least a couple instances where the face of the demon actually appears for just a split second. Like, did you see like the little cut to black during this, like the brief little black cut to black during that nightmare?
Briefly, yes.
You can see the demon's face in the freeze frame.
Okay, so that is we do see the Pazuzu face really briefly in the freeze frame.
Yes, Eileen Dietz, I believe, did the makeup test for that. Like, and later on, when you see Reagan's face superimposed with the demon, superimposed with Pazuzu, that's also Eileen Dietz doing that as well. It's like, and there are actually quite a few cases when, like, in freeze frames, we can actually see the demon actually overlaid, or even just like for very brief frames. It's kind of like almost like subliminal images, almost. I'm going to assault your mind with subliminal messages. That kind of thing. Like, so, the overall Silent Nightmare. What's your interpretation, or what did you make of that one?
Well, I think is mostly helplessness. He's calling out to his mother, and he's trying to save her. He's just trying to really connect with her, and she's already kind of losing, not really listening to him. So I think it's kind of a little bit of life, life in the dreams. The fact, she, like a little kind of carelessness on her part, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, it also highlights his as you mentioned, his helplessness. I was about to say carelessness, but helplessness in the whole situation as well.
Yeah. Well, that's also, another thing too is like the job of, again, if he's having a crisis of faith, it's like, it's kind of falling on deaf ears where you're making prayers and everything and hoping good things happen, you get nothing back. So perhaps a little bit of like the crisis being represented in the dream.
Yeah, and the fact that part of it might have been influenced by Pazuzu's presence. So,
yep.
It's like, and speaking of which, it is kind of an early advocate of like, he does point out like for many years what was believed to be demonic possessions actually just turned to be could have been just mental health issues. Like, not a lot of that was even talked about back then. So in a way, this movie was progressive in several ways. Do you agree with that, or do you
agree with what? Like, what progressive element are you speaking of specifically?
I said mental health wasn't really something that was talked about back then.
Well, you're right about that. I think it is progressive in that sense, but given that it's an actual demon possession, though, I mean, I don't know how progressive per se.
I mean, what I mean is like it's acknowledging the fact that a lot of these things that were mistaken for possessions could have just been straight up just mental health issues. I mean, I know in this case, I don't think it really softens the blow or anything. I'm just saying it wasn't really something that was discussed even back then.
Well, I think about this, Jacob. I mean, like in the movie itself, it's thinking of like, okay, before acknowledging that, we're going for the creepy surgical option, like looking for the lesions on the brain. Yeah. And trying to say it's seizures before it's like, well, it could be something, maybe it could be something else. Like no, there's no such, can't possibly be. It's like, well, no, the bed was moving and float, like the bed was moving around. Like, no, she was moving around. You weren't there, man. You don't.
Like, even then, one of the doctors like, have you ever considered an exorcism?
Yeah.
Like, It's like, so yeah, I'm not saying it was like I'm not saying it was like a full thing. I was just pointing out like it's just something that was kind of rare to even discuss back then as well.
Yeah.
So what next? So what next, Dragon?
Let's see. So let's talk about Reagan.
Yes, Linda Blair, who was very young at the time, like 12 years old.
That's about right. So Reagan, her deterioration through the movie is really impressive. It's like gritty and realistic. Like, I like the idea that in real life, you get to see like she's getting these little scratches on her face, and then as we go through the film, when she gets, it's kind of playing into like a natural kind of possession look for her, and then of course when we put her in the full ambiance of the cold room and like it's like we had little scars on her face, and she had like really chapped lips, but still looked pretty much like her. And then we put her in the room, and after horrific things happen, she's looking more and more like less human.
Yeah, straight up demonic, you could say.
That's what I'm saying. I like that it's like again, as we said, we take her to doctors who are misdiagnosing her with seizures and everything, and brain lesions, and are doing horrific things to her, and the full on demonic Reagan look is basically. How much, like, you gotta imagine the big challenge of the film is going to be how do we sell someone's possessed without just giving them horns or like a monster mask, like a fully mod? Like, how are they going to look like the actual person before it's like, okay, human face and then just wear like a mask or something? Like, I'm not saying they use an actual mask, but you get my idea. It's like you get what I'm saying here. It's like, why would they? Like, how do you sell the humanity within the monster design essentially? So the idea here is like, well, let's twist, well, literally in this case, let's twist the body in ways it shouldn't go. It just like what's the furthest we can push like the look of this little girl, that there's like a little bit of her in there, but it's just going completely like we're tying her to the bed. After very horrifically, she's stabbing herself in the crotch with a cross. Which, by the way, why are they sharpening crosses like that, man? That's a horrible idea. Whoever designed those crosses.
Yeah, I mean, she was like basically the demon was like pleasuring herself with the crucifix.
Yeah,
that was like one of the scenes that like they thought it would like stand out, and freaking wrote it into both the script and the movie, but thought like maybe it should be cut.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when I this movie, I was like, okay, I heard something about the cross thing, but I did not expect. Oh my gosh, just stabbing herself down there with that. Now, I think this is going to be overanalyzing things, but I do think there might be something symbolic there of the idea. It's like 12-year-old girl, especially at that age. She's she's acting very grown up in the things she doesn't horrifically, mind you, but she's acting very grown up.
I mean, that's kind of like exactly what they're going for.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's kind of a symbolism of the little girl growing up at that scary time, very much literalized. Like it's like every teenager having a tantrum or something. In this case, every again, it's the girl going through puberty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that they're kind of going for with that scene.
Yeah. So as I say, like you do stuff, of course, the neck twisting around, like you hear like the bones crunching and everything.
Yeah.
It's
of course that was like that was accomplished by an animatronic, like you're using like radio controls to operate the eyes and mouth.
Mm-hmm. And the fact she can do that is kind of like a nod to what she did to the director. Yeah,
like the director supposedly fell down the stairs and got his neck and broke his neck.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's revealed that like his neck was completely twisted.
Yeah, so the suggestion is like that's her like teasing the mother. Actually, that's probably her giving the mother a clue as to what happened, I think.
It's entirely possible.
Also, she's wearing contacts. These are like full on painful contacts. Back in the day, folks, it wasn't like little like the actual visual contacts people used to instead of glasses, but these were like big old like almost like glass, big old glass like little things. You have to play. You have to use like an applicator too. You have to stick them in the thing like.
Yeah, well, I understand. Like specifically the part where the eyes go white. Like she had to put like numbing agent in her eyes, in her eyes, and they're perfectly fine. The eyes were perfectly fine. She just couldn't technically see out of them.
I don't even know if these were like I don't even know if they had the advent of the applicator, because in the 80s, like late 70s and early 80s, they had the applicator for the contacts. But then it might have been like literally someone holding their eyes open, like jamming them in there.
It's like I don't think they did that per se.
So there probably wasn't. I don't know. There probably wasn't applicators. I mean, that was there in like probably like 79 or something. So it might have been around for a while.
So yeah, a lot of that stuff. Obviously, there are no computers to do any of the effects done in this movie. All of it was done in front of the camera.
Oh yeah.
It's like the head twisting, the levitation, which is done by actually polka dotted, not polka dotting, but like dotting wires at different angles to film it, so it didn't appear on the camera. It's like all kinds of different techniques. Like she was actually being levitated with wires. Like all kinds of different it was very lo-fi, low budget kind of thing. The movie did actually go over budget, but it's still a lot of it was accomplished by being really low budget, especially with the effects. And I gotta say that kind of does one of the reasons why Friedkin was hired was because he was able to do these kind of things and make it film it in a documentary style. And that's one of the reasons why Blatty wanted Friedkin to direct the movie, because he was able to bring that extra sense of realism to the whole thing. And apparently, Denise Nickerson, I've mentioned this, as considered for the role, and she was Violet in Willy Wonka. Violet, you're turning violet. Well, she'd definitely be turning something else if she was in this movie.
Well, in this case, she'd be like projectile vomiting.
Violet, you're turning into a demon, Violet.
Give me my gum back.
Oh, God. Literally in this case. All right, so what's next?
Detective Kinderman.
Yes, who he actually seeks out Father Karras first. And they actually do seem to be a little bit of bonding. Like, hey, you look like that. Hey, did anyone ever tell you look like Paul Newman? I kind of love how Detective Kinderman has a thing for movies. He's a big cinema nut.
Plus, we have a film. We have a film angle in this movie, so it makes sense.
Yep. I mean, the funny thing is, Georgetown University is actually a religious university as well. So that's another reason. That's another reason why filming there was so apt. But yeah, I really like the kind of the Kinderman. Kinderman did have a bigger role in the novel. The novel itself is has a little bit of a mystery element to it. The funny thing is, none of the actors and none of Blatty, Friedkin, and Blair, in the documentary, basically all said that they don't consider this to be a horror movie. They consider it to be more like a thriller, or even some kind of theological thriller or detective movie almost. So they don't. None of them actually consider it to be a horror movie. But it's basically been listed as a horror movie throughout its entire history. So
always that weird line that we walk, because nowadays you have a bunch of serial killer movies and are they thrillers or they horror movies? Well, they're really horrific, but they're technically the thrillers.
Yeah, I mean there is a fine line between it. I think this does fall more into horror than thriller, personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, I guess we kind of have a monster, but the monster's not going around killing everyone, though. We have really just kills. That's the thing. We have a body, but we don't really see her do it, though.
Yeah, and technically we do have another victim in this movie too.
We do. She scares a guy, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was so it is definitely a fine line, but I do think it falls more into horror than what they claim.
Anyway, Kinderman, did you recognize what Kinderman was from?
No.
12 Angry Men.
Ooh.
Juror number 3, the big troublemaker of the group. That was him.
I've never actually... Here's the funny thing, Dragon. I've never actually seen the movie 12 Angry Men.
I like it.
but I was actually in a production, a play version of it.
Which juror were you?
Number 7.
I remember. I think 7's the funny one. Were you the funny one?
Yes, I was the one who wanted to get to the baseball game.
Yeah, you were him. You were Mr. Artunian from Great Muppet Caper. That was you.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Yep. I said I've never, but so I am familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, wait. So they didn't show you the movie? You read off the page?
I mean, they showed us a film version of it. I think it was. I don't think it was the version from this. I think it was made after this.
It wasn't the black and white one, was it?
No, it was It was a color one.
Oh. Right.
But we were shown that in preparation.
Who do you remember who juror number 7 was in that movie?
No.
Okay. So
I don't know. I don't remember anyone from that movie.
All right. Anyway, so Dr. Kinderman.
Yeah.
Ron, is Kinderman supposed to be the silhouette, or is that literally?
You mean like in the poster?
Yeah, in the poster. So that's
Father. That's Father Marin.
That's what I thought, but we mirror a lot of shots with the detective though when he's going up those stairs. He's getting winded going up those stairs. That's why I kind of want to. It makes the most sense for it to be the father. It does.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of funny thing that occurs to me, but we need to go with a bag though.
Yep. There's always Marin.
Yep. All right. So.
Yes.
Let's see. Admittedly, with Kinderman, it's kind of a nothing role. He's kind of a nothing character at the end of the day because I do feel the mystery kind of plotting did get a little trimmed down in this compared to what you've told me. I don't know what it was in the book, but he does seem to be there just to kind of like add stakes to the mother. Like, okay, I really got to figure this out with the kid because now if someone's going after him, I now know my child has probably committed a murder by demon possession, but still committed murder.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Just given the crux of the whole movie really lies with the priest, it just feels like, did we need a cop?
I know. I think so. A lot of his, like as I mentioned, some of his scenes were trimmed out of the final movie.
Yeah, I think it kind of shows.
But as you mentioned, it does add like a little bit of character to it, and he was originally going to be part of the ending, as I mentioned earlier, where Dyer and Kinderman, connecting.
Right.
But the audio that was one of the scenes that was originally going to be re-added into the film, during the recutting at the end, during the version you've never seen, but they couldn't find the audio track for it. Because sometimes the way they were filmed, they do the actual film and then the dialogue is recorded separately.
Yeah.
And then obviously they're spliced together to make the final film. But either they lost the audio track or the audio track was damaged, so they couldn't use it when recutting the movie.
Okay, so we established Chris refuses to commit Reagan, and she's put her in the equivalent of a padded cell, which is the padded bedrooms, because to make sure she doesn't injure herself, which is an actual risk.
And they got her tied down to the bed.
Mm-hmm. So the bed rig is just super impressive the way they did that and the way it moves. It just moves so practically, and then it doesn't look like she's on like a ride or anything all of a sudden, but it moves like, oh god, this bed has suddenly been possessed, and it's going up and down, and then she's levitating. It's crazy.
Yep. And of course, the first actual revelation when we get Father Karras too, there he's kind of he's even doubtful himself about it being a legitimate possession, but then when he actually sees it and hears it, he's like, oh my god, this is an actual demonic possession.
Oh yeah, I think so. We call in the priest, and we need the wizened priest from the opening. We need Marin. It's
I kind of like how he had to acquire evidence for the fact that she was possessed, she's speaking in tongues, that kind of thing.
And in reality, she's just speaking backwards,
and of different languages, including Latin and French.
Yeah, Latin and backwards.
Latin and backwards. Yes, backwards is a language.
Apparently.
It's like,
well, I mean, it's Bizarro Superman backwards.
he doesn't always speak backwards though.
Not always, but in the comics, it was always backwards.
Didn't obviously for different media they just adapted to speaking like a
Yeah.
very stupid person.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like in the 50s, Bizarro was released. He was speaking backwards completely. That was the thing. So.
All right, then, kind of like Zatanna's spells in a way.
Yeah, and then it was backwards in the sense that he was speaking forwards, but like the arrangement of the words were backwards. But in some interpretations in the comics, they had like the language be backwards.
You mean like the syntax of the sentence would be normal, but the actual words would be backwards.
Yes.
Like the sentence would grammatically make sense, but the words were backwards.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. So
okay, so
Zuzu's getting in Kara's head.
Yes, it's like your mother's in here with us.
Like very disquieting, and then we have I like the little tells there of he splashes with holy water and she's reacting to it. It's really just tap water. But he doesn't know the mother's maiden name. She doesn't know the mother's maiden name, but she does know the mother died.
Yeah. Interesting.
Ambiguity, kids. But that's the thing. So at the end of the day, I mean, clearly, real demon in there. Because, I mean, we see the eyes, we see the effects, like we're shooting bile. So clearly a real demon. But still, kept you guessing until we got there.
Yep, it's an actual demonic possession.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm saying. The last 40 minutes, Jake, this is where things really get good.
Yep, this is like the part of the movie obviously everybody remembers.
Yeah.
Because it's like the most insane part of the movie. And and probably like the part that's earned it its reputation as being one of the scariest movies of all time.
It just goes to show you, man, like 50 years later, I mean, it's just three people in a room, and it's so captivating.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like that we're not going all over the place, just like three people in a room.
It's like Father
bouncing bed.
Marin, Karis, and Pazuzu.
Mm-hmm. 4 if you count Linda Blair.
Yep. So yeah. And it's more like the last 30 minutes rather than like 40 minutes.
I don't know. I kind of saw the 40-minute mark is when things really like. Are you sure it's 30 minutes? Like, they're showing up like around like 40 minutes, right?
Yeah, I believe so. But the actual exorcism doesn't take place like the last 30 minutes.
All right.
And the demon, it even said like the exorcism can take quite a long time.
Yeah.
So. But you basically the main part of the exorcism is like the last 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, after realizing that and basically getting approval, they seek the help of someone who's encountered the demon before with Father Marin.
Yep.
Which brings Max von Sydow back into the movie.
And he owns the room, man. When he shows up, he ain't scared of no demon.
Hard to believe he was only 40 years old at the time this movie was made.
Yeah, because they made him look really old.
Yep. The funny thing is, like, I believe like Stellan Skarsgård or someone on that, or one of the Skarsgårds, I believe, actually played him in a prequel.
No, you're right, Stellan Skarsgård, yeah.
I played him in like one in the prequel, like a prequel to this, and he was actually older than Max von Sydow was at the making of this movie.
Crazy.
Yeah, and he was supposed to be the younger version of Father Marin, which is kind of crazy if you think about it in that way.
That was cuckoo bananas, my friend.
Yes. But yeah, the makeup effect is great. Like they make him look like he's an old man who's.
No, it's flawless. I mean, we've seen Max von Sydow old, and he looks just like Max von Sydow then. Like it looks like Force Awakens Max von Sydow.
I mean, look at Father Marin in like the desert at the beginning, and then look at as you mentioned, look at Max von Sydow and the Force Awakens at the very beginning of that movie. He looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it's like it was like looking into the future. And of course, when he pulls up out of the cab, we see one of the most famous movie shots of all time. Him standing in the light.
Oh yeah, money shot.
It's like that scene was kind of like described in the book, in a way. Like it's like like an ordinary man surrounded by an otherworldly light.
It's captivating.
Yep. And there's a reason why like they went for that shot and they used it for the poster because they knew it was that striking of an image.
So Karis is things are going well, a little messy, with all the vomit and everything. But Karis is seeing his mother in the bed, so the demon sees weakness in the room. I like that. We have like the priest who's on the fringes, paired with like the priest who's dealt with him before. So that's Pazuzu's in.
Yeah.
And I like that we have like the pauses during the exorcism, which are very very key moments. Or like, hey, say your line, say your line. Yeah. So poor Marin dies. Killed him off. It's very sad.
All right.
Jacob, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, you cut out.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So we killed off poor Father Marin there. He he dies from the stress of it all. 'Cause, they see like really demonic. Like it's a cold room. We're shaking the bed. The girl's she's going nuts. She's like they're doing the power of Christ compels you, and she ain't having it.
It's like I actually do have a bit of a background on how that scene was made.
Sure, it does.
It's like the whole thing took over about a month to complete. An entire exorcism scene took about a month to make.
Well, they did say exorcisms could take a long time.
Yeah, that is true.
They warned him.
Like, Friedkin, he wanted the room to be cold enough to see the actor's breath.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to see him. So basically, they had a refrigeration system installed in to reduce the set to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, that's a bit much.
Because that's the point where they wanted to see the breath.
You know what they did back in the old days to kind of cheat that?
What?
So back in the day, I mean, it's still used occasionally. They don't refrigerate the whole set or anything, or add it in with CG, which is the quitter's way of doing it. It's kidding.
And also for the safety of the actors.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. So there was a trick where there's this little plastic cage with dry ice in it that the actors would put in their mouths. When basically if you had like a silent scene where the actors didn't need to talk and just needed like to breathe, they would have that, and they would kind of like give them a little bit of dry ice, so like it's probably like a little pouch too, like if they had like a little bit of dialogue, but usually like really for distance and stuff.
All right.
There's a story. I don't know if it was Cagney or someone.
Ooh, James Cagney.
I don't know if it was James Cagney. I think the story is it might have been Cagney. Cranston tells the story a lot better. I just can't remember. Not Cranston. It was either Cranston or Jonathan Banks tells the story a lot better. But essentially, someone was tired of messing with the plastic cage. So they saw they kind of put it in their mouth like gum or something. So they basically put the piece of dry ice in their mouth. And it again, it's so dry ice is so cold. It's like a burning like blackening kind of thing, where basically they lost teeth and could have done serious. Like this actor, like they were in tremendous pain when they took it out of a little protective plastic cage. Moral of the story is, kids, like don't put dry ice in your mouth. It's never gonna end well.
Yeah.
But that's how they did back in the old days. They gave you like the little plastic cage to give you like that's how they made the room look cold back in the day.
Yeah, and they also gave them they didn't have the advent of hindsight back then.
Nope.
They learned by doing. And keep in mind, that's also when they thought asbestos was a safe fire repellent.
Yeah.
Before they realized that it was extremely toxic towards humans.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so of course, like the set was basically built into a refrigerator almost, and basically 20 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Like the actors were all like wearing under their priest clothes, or like wearing like jackets and clothes. Whereas poor Linda Blair only had like a nightgown and long underwear on. To this day, she can't stand being cold because of that, and you can't really blame her. can you?
Nope.
Like, and the thing is, like, since the lighting equipment warmed the air, it only remained cold if they could only film about 3 minutes at a time. That, and due to frequent breakdowns of the equipment, resulted in the month-long filming of the scene. So, there were like, a lot of complications filming that very short scene. But it took a month. So it's like it was really negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit in that room. I don't know if I'd be able to handle that. But would you be able to handle something like that, Dragon?
I mean, I do like the cold, but not that much.
I mean, I don't mind the cold, but I probably wouldn't like it that cold.
Yeah.
But it's like, so Dragon, the exorcism itself. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, as I said, it gets really, again, like things we're ratcheting up the tension, and then the priest ultimately. So again, what we build to in the climax here, like okay, so our experienced priest who has dealt with this demon before, he's an old man. He can only apparently he's a very youthful old man, but the point he's an old man and he can only take so much, and he keels over. And what I love about this is that we kind of Karos is all alone. He's lost someone else. I mean, he's already lost his mother.
Yeah.
He's kind of been in a fragile place. With religion, he's very much seeing proof of the divine before him right now with with all the demon stuff that's going on. So he's kind of pod committed to it, but he's
and the demon is obviously getting under his skin, mentioning his mother, and even impersonating his mother a couple points.
Yep, impersonating his mother, making him hallucinate his mother, and saying horrible things about his mother. But what she's doing, anyway.
What she's doing down in hell.
Yeah, she's a popular girl apparently down there.
According to what Pazuzu's saying.
Do you think he was right? Do you think he was telling the truth, or do you think he was just saying mean things?
I think he's just saying mean things to.
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
Really horrifying. It'd be a Robot Chicken sketch if it were the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since this movie's been on TV, they kind of censored that line. Your mother still rots in hell.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes more sense if you think about it, but I can definitely see why the other version would be a lot more shocking.
Yep. Anyway, so he's been put through the ringer here, and he's just had enough, and he's run out of options. But in this moment, I think he has a bit of clarity here, where he's like, okay, Plan A's gone. We're going with Plan B, which is like, okay, I'm going to throw myself on the grenade here. We got to end this now. I promised that girl's mother we would save the girl, and to do that, he's got to make the host inhospitable. So he basically grabs Reagan and is punching, really more Pazuzu, but obviously it's still a little girl in there. He's punching the crap out of Pazuzu, demanding that
take Pazuzu, me, get out of her, take me.
Yep, then I love this. I love everything about this resolution to our story here, where he grabs the pendant, which is like the protective totem around his neck. It's the real symbol of religion.
And it's even kind of hinted that this is one of the things that Pazuzu kind of wanted in the first place.
Yeah.
Wanting to take possession of Karis as well.
Yeah. So rips that, and again, seeing kind of seeing weakness. Also, I think this is the joy of I corrupted a priest. I'm in the priest body. I can do stuff to screw over the Catholic Church. Yeah.
But of course, basically at this place where Marin finds his faith again.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. So yeah,
he finds his faith to save the life of a child who's basically been taken over.
And symbolically, he has to lose his faith to find his faith.
Yes.
Yeah, so again, the thing is ripped off, he gets possessed, and I like the little effect with the eyes. You see, he's actually being possessed right now, but then he makes the hero play.
And actually, looking out the window, there's a brief freeze frame of his, a ghostly image of his mother appearing there.
Mm-hmm.
And not wanting the demon to succeed in anything that's going on, and realizing what would happen if he was fully possessed as well, he basically defenestrates himself.
Yeah, he jumps out the window, and it's quite the fall. And again, I keep thinking about the parody of with Scared Shrekless. This scene, again, far more lighthearted, as you can probably imagine, where we do the window jump.
Yeah.
It's with Pinocchio, though.
So he's perfectly fine.
Oh, yeah, but here, like, still, it's like, so the Shrek is ticked off at Pinocchio and grabs him and throws him out the window. and you hear, oh, choo, choo, choo. So he's going down the stairs, like, it's like, oh, he's like bouncing down the stairs. So it's the very lighthearted version of this scene.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we forgot to mention the other deleted scene from this film.
Yeah.
Which is when they're they're gathered around the bed and they're reciting basically the incantation to exorcise the demon. They're reciting the exorcism.
Yeah.
Which of course is kick him in the dishpan, roo roo roo.
That's from Courage.
Yeah, it would have made this movie 10 times better.
It's like, are you sure 10 times?
No, you're right. Just 7.
Just 7.
No, seriously, it would have been really funny though. No, really, they shouldn't have done that. But still, it's a fun thought, given how well made parodies we've seen of The Exorcist.
I only got 7. But yeah.
Anyway,
but upon his death, but he flies down the stairs. Like, basically, there's like Linda Blair recalls like seeing that whole thing and like seeing like the stuntman just jump out the window. Like the stairs themselves were like barely coated with protective stuff, with protective elements.
Yeah, I mean, you see that splat, man. You see that the redness under that fall.
Yep. Fortunately, obviously, the stuntman survived.
I would hope so.
Yeah, but like,
I mean, given all the other bad stuff that happened during this production, you're like, oh god, did he make it?
Stuntman did survive. So yeah. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, like earlier this year, William Friedkin himself passed away.
Well, yeah.
It's something I forgot to mention earlier in this podcast.
You picked a great time to mention it. We're talking about dead people.
I know, but it reminded me. And it's unfortunate we lost a great director of cinema.
Yeah.
So.
This is nice though. I love that Father Dyer, the guy basically put our priest in contact.
Yeah, like that's like I think that's like one of the actual priests that was hired for like to be a consultant on this movie, like William O'Malley, I think his name is.
Are you sure?
I mean, I don't know if that's him, but there were a couple actual real life like priests who worked at Georgetown University that were hired as consultants and actors in the movie. They actually had like real life priests working on the movie, basically to make sure a lot of the stuff was as accurate as possible.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was William O'Malley.
He doesn't remember that. He doesn't look back too fondly on this movie, though.
He doesn't?
No.
All he's got to do is show up and get kissed by the little girl. That's all he has to do.
It's like I don't know exactly what the whole story is, but if I remember correctly, he doesn't remember it. He doesn't look back on it too fondly.
Well, it's probably because of all of the curse stuff that was happening during the movie.
And then that's probably one of it too.
Anyway, so we have this great resolution here. Father Dyer, he gives last rites to Karis, which is nice, given that it gives you the impression he doesn't die possessed, at least completely. It gives you a sense that he was there in the last moments.
And Pazuzu has essentially been gotten rid of from Father Karis.
Yeah, and then additionally, though, it's kind of nice that he's kind of come full circle, like his whole religious kind of like his crisis of faith and everything. We've kind of given a nice resolution of that, where he kind of goes full circle. He kind of embraced the faith. He saved the girl, and he's getting rewarded for it in a sense.
Yep, even in death, or quote unquote death.
Yep. So then
because we see Father Karis again as patient X in The Exorcist 3.
Huh. If memory serves, Patrick Fabian is in The Exorcist 3.
I'll have to double check on that, and I don't even know who Patrick Fabian is, or who's Patrick Fabian?
Howard Hamlin from Better Call Saul.
Oh, all right. Hey, okay.
Anyway, but yeah. So the movie ends. You get the goodbye with Father Dyer and the non-possessed Reagan,
Yep.
and he's observing the staircase, and that's about it.
Yep. And thus ends the. Oh, apparently Samuel L. Jackson was in Exorcist 3 as well.
Yeah, there you go.
What did you say the guy's name was?
Patrick Fabian.
I'm not seeing his name.
He was in the third of something. Is it The Omen 3 or Exorcist 3? So it wasn't Exorcist 3.
I think it might have been Omen then.
No, I'm paranoid.
There's a Patrick Ewing in this, and Fabio is in this movie.
If only we could combine the names.
There's Fabio in The Exorcist 3, and Brad Dourif as well, who's also well known as Chucky.
That is true.
Which I don't know if we've covered on this.
Oh yeah, he's in the last Exorcism.
In the Exorcist 3.
Wait, so that is Exorcist 3.
I mean, like Brad Dourif is in The Exorcist 3.
No, Fabian.
Oh.
Okay, so is the last Exorcism part of the Exorcist franchise?
No.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, maybe that's what I got confused with.
You mean the movie, like the 2010 movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one he's in.
Okay, so that's not the Exorcist 3.
No.
Okay.
The Exorcist 3 was made in 1990.
Okay, there we go.
Last Exorcism was 2010.
Yeah, well, now we've established that, Jacob. Thank you. Okay.
And funny, it's kind of funny that there was a Last Exorcism Part 2. Well, it doesn't really seem like the Last Exorcism now, does it?
Well, was 2 the prequel?
I have no idea.
Okay. Anyway.
No, actually, it's a sequel.
All right, well that's it. We're observing the creepy staircase, and that's how the movie ends.
Yep. And the thing is, the funny thing or the interesting thing about this movie is like there's not a lot of original music to this. Like a lot, like the music that was used is really only used in scene transitions. The famous Tubular Bells was actually a licensed piece of music. Do you know what I'm talking about, right, Dragon?
Yeah.
The music is actually made by Mike Oldfield, and that was actually not made for the movie. It's like this one is discovered by William Friedkin and decided to use it for this one after I believe it was a score by Lalo Schifrin was actually rejected. Jack Nietzsche did like a little bit of incidental music here and there, but that's like a lot of the original music was licensed classical music or modern classical music. And I gotta say, Tubular Bells is basically now most famous for being the song from The Exorcist. So make of that what you will. So final thoughts, Dragon, I guess?
Yeah.
All right. What are your final thoughts then?
Well, I mean, look, again, I want to be very clear. This is not a bad movie by any stretch. It's not. I'm just saying, I have weird heart taste. And I've said this many a time.
It's just not really your cup of tea.
Yeah, it's not my. Here's the thing, it's not my cup of tea, but I still like the really good parts of the movie, particularly, our third act. I think the third act's very strong. I can really get behind that third act. But I mean, honestly, part of me thinks like it's kind of a thing where the movie's marketed for that third act, and I think maybe that's ultimately that's why I like the third act as much as I do. And I mean, I do like some of our build up, but I don't know. I don't think it knits together as tightly as I like it to. But that's the thing I kind of bump up against with Freakin' style, even in movies I really like that he did, like French Connection, where it's. Again, that does pay off ultimately, but still, he likes that slow burn. I don't know. I mean, I also like slow burns, but I don't know. It's just like I like a long game, and I like the slow burn, but I kind of need something to kind of like. I like facilitating, or I like kind of something where I can kind of look back on, I can see like maybe some parallels and some connections. I don't know. I'm just again, Friedkin was consummate director. The man, like Guillermo del Toro, idolized Friedkin and what he did. And again, the movie is just still. I mean, there's not another. We so many times in the pop culture in this and all the other Exorcist kind of based material, like for example, a show called Evil. Show called Evil's good. Yeah, Mike Coulter and the Michael Emerson and everything. Yeah,
that's a Paramount Plus thing, right?
yeah. It started off just on CBS, I think, but it ended up on Paramount Plus. But yeah, that's good, and that's essentially kind of following a lot of the tantamount principles of The Exorcist, and that's great. And as that show went on, they kind of wasn't able to kind of cut loose when it went to Paramount Plus, and they were able to kind of go deeper. And they actually had an Exorcist plot line in season 2 of that show. So there's a big legacy with this film, There is. I mean, Evil Dead. We don't get Evil Dead without The Exorcist. We don't have gags like Beetlejuice loving The Exorcist and watching like the idea of like a bio Exorcist. We don't really have that with The Exorcist laying at the groundwork. This thing was like the phenomenon. It was like this movie is like the R-rated movie essentially.
It gets funnier every time I watch it.
Yep, keeps getting funnier every time I watch it.
Yep.
So that's what I'm saying. The Exorcist. I cannot rebuff like the importance of this film and how it terrified a generation, and how we keep trying to either top it or just kind of roll with it or just kind of try and like add spokes to the wheel. It's it speaks to like the thing with like possessions and like zombies and everything, where it's like it's the loved one in a horrific evil looking state, but they're still your loved one. You got to reconcile that. So I mean, it's a head trip, and it's a very well done movie. Not my favorite of our finales for On Holiday Hijinks, but it is certainly a very key and important one.
And it makes for a good one to close out on too for this.
Yeah,
I mean, especially considering it is the 50th anniversary.
Well, absolutely.
Like so, I would definitely say it has earned its iconic status.
Yeah.
It's like, again, it's not one of my go-to movies. I mean, it's a very hard movie to go back to. Like I don't know how. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there, but at least for me, it's not like you know what? I feel like watching The Exorcist again.
Well, maybe if you watch it like 16 times, you could actually become Beetlejuice, Jacob.
And I was like, it gets funnier every time. Every time I watch it.
Wouldn't it be funny if you actually watched it like 16 times, like by the 16th time, you're actually laughing at it? Like, oh man, that's so hilarious. When Karis was crying over his dead mother, wasn't that funny?
Oh god.
When the old man died, and when our priest like tossed himself out that window, that was hysterical.
The funny thing is, they're both made by Warner Brothers.
Yep.
So yeah, but I don't know if is Beetlejuice actually on Max?
Yeah.
Oh,
you can never count how long it's going to stay there, but for Halloween, it's there.
I'll have to actually watch it before it goes away.
Well, they'll do it.
Yep, I will do it, Dragon. I will, and I'll watch that 16 times.
There you go.
Watch the Bio Exorcist movie 16 times.
Yeah.
I wonder if that'll get funnier every time I watch it.
I would like to think so.
But yeah, my final thoughts, like, this isn't a movie I would go back to watch all the time. It's like I said, I'm sure there are people that would, but I'm not one of them. But like I said, this movie has more than earned its status. I mean, especially for the time and place it was made. Like this movie was groundbreaking for its time, and it's definitely cemented its status as a cultural icon, and definitely earned its reputation as one of the most famous horror films of all time. Where they're even still making movies and stuff about it to this day. Like just a couple of years ago, there was a TV show about it, and this year there was a new movie. So the world still has place for The Exorcist, it seems. They just can't seem to let it go. For better or for worse, I think it's here to stay. But as varying a quality as the subsequent materials are, the first one will always be fondly remembered as the groundbreaking piece of cinema that it is. All right. Thank you, Little Blue, Theme Park Priest, for commenting tonight. And thank you all who have stayed through us this year for Haunted Holiday Hijinks. And we'll be sure to bring you another spooky selection of 13 entries next year as well, right, Dragon?
Correct, sir.
That is correct, sir. So, we don't know. Who knows what they may be? Maybe they'll be spooky. Maybe they'll be campy. Who knows? But it is sure to be full of haunted holiday hijinks. So, that's the end of tonight's spooky selection. And our spirits grow weary. But they'll be even stronger next time as we engage in even more of those haunted holiday hijinks. This movie gets funnier every freaking time.